The story begins with an eerie quiet, the kind that settles over a place where something vital has been drained away. The protagonist, perhaps a journalist, a detective, or a former resident returning after years away, rolls into Hollow Town under a sky that feels too heavy, too still. The first thing they notice is the absence of children. No laughter in the streets, no bikes abandoned in yards, no small hands pressed against school bus windows, just silence. The town itself looks normal at a glance. Neat houses, a weathered diner, a gas station with flickering lights, but the air hums with something unsaid. The protagonist checks into a motel where the clerk's smile doesn't reach their eyes, or stops by a diner where the coffee is strong, but the conversation is weak. When they ask about the empty playground or the closed-down school, the locals offer tight-lipped shrugs or change the subject with practiced ease. A few, though, the ones with shadows in their gaze, whisper things like, "Kids don't stay long here," or "Best not to ask about that." The town's secrets are buried but not gone, like old bones shifting under thin soil. The protagonist feels the weight of unseen stares as they walk down Main Street, past shuttered shops and a church with a rusted bell. And then, just as they start to wonder if they're imagining things, they see it. A single child's shoe left in the middle of the road, rain-soaked and forgotten. No one stops to pick it up. No one even seems to notice. That's when they know something is very, very wrong in Hollow Town. The protagonist steps into the dim, wood-paneled diner, the bell above the door jingling like a half-hearted warning. The air smells of grease and old coffee, and the few patrons hunched over their meals glance up, then quickly look away. Their faces are weathered, their movements slow, as if carrying an invisible weight. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that reads Marla, slides a cup of coffee across the counter, without asking. "Passing through?" she says, her voice flat, like she already knows the answer. When the protagonist asks about the town, the responses are a careful dance of evasion. Old man Grady at the end of the bar chuckles into his whiskey, muttering, "Ain't no use digging up what's buried." A young mother, her fingers gripping her mug too tight, changes the subject when school is mentioned. "Mine's homeschooled," she says too quickly. Then there's the preacher, sitting alone in a corner booth, his Bible untouched in front of him. He meets the protagonist's gaze and says, "Some things the good Lord didn't mean for us to understand." His smile is thin, almost pitying, but the real unease comes from what isn't said. The way the diner falls silent when the protagonist mentions the old Hollow Festival, the way the bartender's hand shakes as he wipes down the counter, the way a faded missing child poster, half peeled from the bulletin board, goes unacknowledged by everyone. And then there's Eli, the town drunk, the outcast, the one who's lost too much to care about keeping secrets. He grabs the protagonist's sleeve outside the diner, his breath sour with liquor and desperation. "They're gone," he slurs. "Not lost, not run off, gone. And if you know what's good for you, you'll get out before you hear him calling your name too." Before the protagonist can ask what he means, the sheriff pulls up in his cruiser, his eyes cold. "Eli, you bothering folks again?" The drunk shrinks back, fear cutting through the alcohol haze. The message is clear. Ask too many questions, and the town will close ranks. But by now, the protagonist knows. Hollow Town's silence isn't just grief, it's guilt. The rain had been falling for hours when the protagonist found themselves in the Hollow Town Public Library, a crumbling brick building that smelled of damp paper and neglect. The librarian, a gaunt woman with a permanent squint, had already made it clear she didn't appreciate snooping. But the microfiche machine in the back corner, dusty, outdated, and seemingly forgotten, whispered of answers. Flipping through brittle newspaper archives, the protagonist's fingers left smudges on the glass as decades of Hollowtown's history flickered under the dim light. Birth announcements, harvest reports, the occasional petty crime, nothing unusual. Then, between a classified for used tractors and a church bake sale notice, a headline snagged their attention like a fishhook. Local boy, 9, vanishes near Black Pine Woods. The date was October 31st, 1987. The article was brief, almost dismissive. Authorities suspect runaway case. But the next clipping, from 1997, told a different story. Search continues for missing Hollow Girl, then another, and another. Each disappearance exactly 10 years apart. Each child last seen near the same patch of woods. Each case closed with unsettling haste. Then, tucked between the pages like a secret, a yellowed photograph fluttered to the floor. A group of children, lined up at the Hollow Harvest Festival, their faces bright with laughter. The protagonist's blood went cold. One of them was holding a small wooden doll, the same doll they'd seen in Eli's ramblings, the same doll now sitting on the sheriff's desk. And in the margin, in faded pencil, a single word: chosen. The old Hollowtown church stood at the edge of Black Pine Woods, its white paint long since grayed by time and neglect. The protagonist hadn't planned on breaking in, hadn't planned on any of this, really. But the weight of those newspaper clippings in their pocket left no choice. The lock on the side door gave way with a rusted groan, and the air inside was thick with the scent of mildew and candle wax. The pews were empty, the altar bare, except for the ledger. It sat open on a small desk near the pulpit, its pages brittle with age. At first glance, it appeared to be ordinary church records, baptisms, marriages, deaths, but then the dates aligned. Every 10 years, without fail, a single entry appeared in faded, careful script. The reckoning fulfilled. A floorboard creaked behind them. The protagonist whirled, heart pounding, to find Old Man Grady standing in the doorway, his shotgun not quite raised but not quite lowered either. His face was unreadable in the dim light. The woods were too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just the crunch of dead pine needles underfoot as the protagonist followed the flickering lantern light deeper into Black Pine. The air grew thicker, colder, clinging to their skin like damp fingers. They shouldn't be here. They knew they shouldn't be here. But the name in the ledger, the next child marked for the reckoning, was someone they knew, a little girl who'd smiled at them in the diner just days ago. Then, the singing started. A child's voice, sweet and high, drifting between the trees. A nursery rhyme, one the protagonist recognized, but twisted, the words slurring into something older, hungrier. They ran toward it, branches clawing at their arms until they burst into a clearing. And there it was, the hollow. Not a cave, not a pit. A mouth, a yawning split in the earth, its edges lined with stones worn smooth by generations of hands. Around it stood the town elders, their faces hidden beneath hoods, their voices chanting in time with the child's song, and in the center, the little girl, barefoot and blank-eyed, stepping toward the edge. The protagonist shouted her name. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the girl turned, not toward them, but up, her head tilting at an impossible angle as the thing behind her eyes stared out. The ground trembled. From the hollow came a sound like 1,000 bones shifting, and then a voice, wet and whispering, not in the air but inside their skull. "You're early." The elders turned as one, and in their outstretched hands the protagonist saw the knives. The air in the clearing was electric with something ancient and ravenous. The elders moved in unison, their knives catching the moonlight like teeth. The little girl, Lily, her name was Lily, stood frozen at the edge of the hollow, her small fingers curled around that same wooden doll from the photograph. The protagonist's breath came in ragged gasps. There was no time to think. only to choose run. The word screamed in their mind. They could still make it, could crash back through the underbrush, leave Hollowtown in the rearview mirror, and never look back. The town would erase Lily's name like it had erased all the others. Life would go on. But then Lily turned her head, just slightly, and for the first time, the blankness in her eyes flickered. A whimper escaped her lips. "Help me." The protagonist's legs moved before they could stop themselves. They lunged forward, knocking into one of the elders, Marla, the waitress, her face now a mask of grim determination, and grabbed Lily's wrist. The moment their fingers touched, the ground beneath them shuddered. The hollow let out a sound like a wounded beast. The elders' chanting turned to shouts. The protagonist didn't wait. They hauled Lily into their arms and ran, her weight light as a bird against their chest. Behind them, the earth split wider, roots snapping like tendons. The trees themselves seemed to reach for them, branches clawing at their clothes. But the worst sound wasn't the roar of the hollow or the cries of the elders. It was the whispers. "You can't save her. She's ours. You'll be next." The protagonist gritted their teeth and ran faster. The car engine screamed as the protagonist fishtailed onto the highway, Lily trembling in the passenger seat, her small hands clutching that damned wooden doll. In the rearview mirror, Hollowtown shrank into the darkness. No lights, no sirens, just the black mouth of the woods, swallowing everything behind them. They'd made it. At least, that's what they told themselves. The radio crackled to life on its own, a warped rendition of that same nursery rhyme from the woods leaking through the static. Lily's head snapped toward it, her pupils swallowing her irises. The protagonist reached to turn it off, and felt the doll's hand close around their wrist. Not Lily's, the doll's. The last thing they saw before the headlights swerved into oncoming traffic was Lily's smile. Too wide, too many teeth. And in the wreckage, as the sirens wailed in the distance, a single figure approached. The sheriff. He knelt beside the twisted metal, pried the doll from Lily's limp fingers, and tucked it into his coat. "Next time," he murmured to the empty air, "we'll choose better." Somewhere, deep in Black Pine Woods, the earth sighed in anticipation. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.